Hello, and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, counselor, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. We pray that you will be encouraged by this podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. I'm producer Jess, and with me today is producer Mike, and we are your guest announcers for the show today.
Hey, Jess. Yeah, today we are continuing with an interview that Dr. Dobson conducted with Rachael back in 2018 on his radio show, Family Talk. This interview took place just a few months after Rachael's husband, Micah, was tragically killed in the line of duty.
So today we're going to pick up the conversation with Dr. Dobson and Rachael talking about Mother's Day and how Rachael dealt with this day without Micah.
Yeah, and before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Dobson, our guest host for the day. Dr. Dobson is the founder and president of Family Talk, a nonprofit organization that produces his radio program, Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. He is the author of more than 30 books dedicated to the preservation of the family. Dr. Dobson served as an associate clinical professor of pediatrics at the University of Southern California School of Medicine for 14 years and on the attending staff of Children's Hospital of Los Angeles for 17 years. He has been active in governmental affairs and has advised 5 U.S. presidents on family matters. He earned his Ph.D. from the University of Southern California in the field of child development. He holds 17 honorary doctoral degrees and was inducted in 2008 into the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Okay, Mike, let's get to it. Here now is part 2 of this conversation between Rachael and Dr. Dobson on this edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.
Rachael, we just came through Mother's Day, which had to be terribly difficult for you. That was just several weeks ago. How did you make it?
Mother's Day, I think, was more painful even than maybe a future holiday might be, because I was thinking that, Mother's Day is for moms. It's, it's for me. And when I hit that day with my eyes open, I just couldn't stop crying because Micah made me a mom. Micah was a wonderful father. Micah taught the kids to bring me breakfast in bed. Micah, invested in his mom. Micah set the example of what it looked like to honor your mom. It was excruciatingly painful.
How did you hide that from your kids?
I don't know that I did the best job of completely hiding it. I tried to shed my tears, while I was getting ready, and then put on my happy face for their sweet gifts and their precious cards and the eggs and strawberries that they made me and the hot cup of coffee they brought. They were so excited, and I didn't want to take away from that from them. And so we have family lunch on Sundays here, and I kind of leaned into the family, to take strength from them and allow them to bring joy for my kiddos at the same time too.
And there are other holidays coming. Yeah. Christmas and Thanksgiving will be hard. That's why we need to pray for you.
Yes, Rachael. We are living in and on those prayers.
This program in our broadcast is heard by 1 million people a week. And I want as many people as possible tonight, anytime, and in the days ahead, to call your name and call the names of your kids and to ask the Lord to continue to walk you through this indescribable tragedy. You can think about that for the rest of your life, and you can get a team of theologians to sit around and talk about why. The Lord does not often answer the word why, but he does say, trust me, and you can trust me even when you can't track me. And you go on believing, and that's what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah. I have asked the Lord why. I've seen responses from the community, from the nation, from people who are coming into a unity to support the law enforcement community. And I asked the Lord, why did it have to cost Micah his life to see these fruits of his death? I know that you and your infinite wisdom and your all-powerful nature and your goodness could have done this any way under the sun, and yet you are doing it with my husband's life and our story. And I don't understand that, but I trust the goodness of God in the very depth of my being, that he is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he will do, and he cannot help but be faithful. He cannot deny his nature. And so I know that it might take me passing from this life into the next to understand why he chose this and how he's allowing this to come about. But you're right, I do trust him, even when I can't track him.
And you're going to see him again. And your kids know that.
Yep. We talk a lot about that Daddy lives. He lives in heaven, in a very real body, doing very real things that we can be excited to join him in, and that we're going to fully embrace him again, and that the pain that we feel today will not last forever. We will not be in this emotional place forever, and we will feel joy again.
Have you thought of yourself before this tragedy as being a strong woman? Or have you gained strength through it and you're determined not to be shaken off the limb?
I can see the Lord preparing me for this in so many ways for so many years, in different experiences, in different training seasons. Even in my time at the Institute at Focus on the Family, I remember Dr. Leland saying, do you really believe that what you really believe is really real? And if I hadn't had that time to establish, why do I believe what I believe, then I wouldn't have been able to come into this tragedy with the strength that I have. But this tragedy certainly is the fire that proves your mettle. So I know that the Lord has built many things into my life to prepare me to walk through this.
The institute that you talked about was started by myself and Dr. Ken Ogden. I'm sure you met him. He's gone on to be with the Lord too. And it was such a wonderful program. The students came, I think it was 80 students per semester, and 44, I think, in the summertime, and really dealt with a lot of the life issues and marriage and parenting and other things. It's now been canceled, and I regret that. Who would have known that the training and information you were getting there was going to be helpful to you later on?
Dr. Dobson, it was a life-changing experience for me.
Really?
It was the first time that I was loved unconditionally in light of my story. I had lived in college in a way that did not honor the Lord, and I came with a lot of brokenness and heartache and a ton of shame. And I was able to come to the Institute to tell my story honestly, to be enveloped not only by the students but by the staff, as they took us alongside of them in meals into their homes. They allowed us to watch them do real life as they manage their marriages and their parenting. I felt like it was one of the first places that I truly knew what the body of Christ looked like and how it is supposed to operate.
That's the way it was designed to function. Rachael, tell us about your relationship with the church community. Were they helpful to you? Were they there for you? Have they reached out to your kids? Have you felt the love of the Christian community?
New Life Church has been an inseparable, protective force in this process. I mean, when we came home from the hospital after Micah had died, our table in the kitchen was already full of food, disposable plates and silverware, flowers. I mean, we hadn't even gotten home, and they were surrounding us. They were there first thing in the morning, Tuesday morning, to help us begin funeral preparations. They took us to purchase clothing for the funerals. They sat around me. It was kind of a funny memory. Various pastors of the church sat around me in the living room while I got my hair colored. So we were planning songs and ceremony layout, and I had foil in my hair and a drape. And every now and then my hairstylist would go, "Okay, everyone, we're going to take a 5-minute break and wash Rachel's hair. And then she'll be back to continue planning the ceremony." And they have cleaned our house. They have done various projects that have needed attention. They have supported me physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to work.
It is.
And I think usually it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But
they feel
I'm
like
really
a
glad
family
to hear that.
to us. Yeah, the first Sunday we came back to church after Micah died, one of the pastors just saw the tears in my eyes, and caught me and just walked me through to children's church, walked me through to the service, got me a seat. I mean, I don't know how we would have done it without them.
You are, in fact, a licensed professional clinical counselor, an LPCC, and a nationally certified counselor. You have a master's degree in counseling from Colorado Christian University. But you told me before we came in here that you're not ready to start counseling other people, grief counseling, or any of those things. You got to land on your feet first.
It's been about 3.5 months since Micah died. And those 3.5 months have been very busy, not only with things for the law enforcement community, supporting my children. I'm learning to take on some or many of the skills that Micah performed in our family. He was our financial manager. And so, I've been trying to learn how to budget and manage our money and take care of many of the things that he did for us. And so it has been a very busy 3.5 months in the midst of a lot of pain. And so I just want to really honor any future clients that I have, that I would be ready to hold space for them and hear their stories, and that wouldn't accidentally become about me because I haven't dealt with my grief in a healthy way yet.
Well, God will use that, and you will know the time, and there will be an opportunity down the road where you can transfer what you've been through and what you've learned. But I think you're really wise in not rushing into that. Tell us who Micah was. What are your memories of him? Where did you meet?
So Micah and I met at the Briargate YMCA, which is just in the northern part of the city here, and we happened to both work there, but I didn't realize he worked there because he worked so few hours in anticipation of beginning at the training academy for the sheriff's office. So every Tuesday at 2 p.m., because he was such a consistent, predictable person, he was coming in and going through his workout, and I kind of took notice of him and thought, well, I'll say hi, and then we started a little conversation, and I thought, I think I could like this guy. I wonder if he loves Jesus. And so I asked him that conversation of where his faith was, and he did indeed love Jesus. And that led us down a path of getting to know each other better and dating. And we had our first date on February 3rd, and we married on November 3rd. So we had a quick courtship here in the Springs. And he was going through the academy at the sheriff's office during that year, and we tease about what a much better job he could have potentially done for them if he hadn't been dating me, because, we tried to spend all of our time together, and I'm sure he wasn't getting the needed sleep to be as strong as he could have been for the sheriff's office, but he sure took it in stride and made a name for himself, getting a leadership award even at the academy, in 2007.
So he was deeply committed to Christ.
Absolutely.
And he was a man of character and a man of honor.
Micah had incredible integrity, to the point where he would say, that was a rolling stop. You didn't stop at that stop sign, every time. Following the law was very important to him. Being the man that he was at home, being the same as he was at work. Hearing stories from his coworkers about him has been so powerful, because that was a side of him that I didn't really get to see. I got the husband and the father and the friend, and they got the law enforcement officer. And just to hear how well he did his job, and to hear his partner tell me, we have pieces missing from our department now that no one knows how to fill because Micah did them so well, and we just relied on him to do them because he did them with such excellence.
He had a future.
He absolutely had a future, and I've even heard from his boss, to say I would have happily and humbly worked for Micah any day. He was such an incredible cop. Even just to see the respect from his coworkers has been so amazing for me and my heart.
And he loved his family.
He is such a family man.
Again, the why. The Lord would take one of the best and brightest and most needed.
Yes.
A man who was playing a very important role in the community. I hope everybody understands that this would be a very violent place, speaking of anywhere in the world, but in our hometown here, Colorado Springs, if there were not men and women who are willing to put it on the line,
right,
and take a chance. And you talked about another person that died recently. I think you told me. Who was that?
Zachary Parrish. We were talking about Zachary. Yeah, and Heath Gum died January 24th here in Colorado also. He was another deputy sheriff in the state.
So about the same time frame.
Within 5 or 6 weeks, all 3 men were killed.
Well, again, I ask our listeners to be in prayer for you. I know you can't answer a lot of mail because it takes time and you're taking care of children and you're trying to get your life together. But would you like to hear from people?
We absolutely love to read everything that comes to us. Yes, we've received some wonderful support mail, and it just encourages my heart on those days when I'm feeling heavy to read the prayers and the support and the encouragement of people around the nation.
Rachael, you have said in several ways that you have a heart to serve and you want to take your experience and your pain and make it useful to other people. And I think that's very remarkable. How can people reach you, and are you available to speak?
I am. I enjoy speaking and telling our story and getting to share that with people. If people want to connect with me, there is an email address, connectwithrachaelflick, no spaces, @gmail.com. And if they want to send any correspondence, all of that can go to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, and they will pass that forward to me.
Rachael, how did you find Jesus?
I accepted Jesus when I was 3 years old. My babysitter sat me down at a little play school table and asked me if I wanted Jesus to be my shepherd. And I remember this very distinctly, and I said that I did, and we prayed the prayer of salvation. And I've been blessed to be a person who has never doubted that Jesus took me that day and accepted me as his very own and has carried me forward from that little tiny place.
You beat me by 1 year. I was 4. And isn't it interesting how that experience stays with you? Do you remember all the details of that?
I do. I remember it very distinctly.
As do I. I mean, I could go back to the place where I was sitting and even what I said and what I thought afterward. My whole life has been shaped by that experience at 4 years of age.
Isn't that amazing how the Lord can come and sweep us away just in our childhood and grow close to us.
Have your kids had the same experience?
They have.
Both of them?
Yep. We've prayed those prayers with them, and Jesus is an expected attendee at our dinner table and in our conversations. And they are wrestling with some of those same why questions. Jesus is good, so why did he allow Daddy to die? But I trust that Jesus is going to come alongside my children, just as he came alongside me in my childhood, and he's going to speak to them in ways that only he could do, that I'm not capable of, and bring them to a place of healing and wholeness.
Is there anything that you would like to say to the person who's listening to us now, who's in a period of grief, maybe not through the same circumstances you have gone through, but everybody's got pain in their lives, and a lot of people are going through horrific losses in their lives. There are a lot. You're a widow now. Does that word have emotional power for you? You never thought you would be a widow, and yet about 80% of women who are married will eventually be widows. I've asked you about 4 questions in a row here, but speak to the person who's going through a difficult time.
I think what I would say to them along the line of what you said about becoming an unexpected widow. I just read a book called Widows Wear Stilettos, because there's, the idea that being a young widow, I'm 35, and I did not anticipate that when I said I do, that would be 10 years and I would have completed my commitment to my husband. And so there's an element of grief that just takes your breath away. And that doesn't have to be only with death. That can be in many tragic circumstances, that the surprise of it is part of the painful place. And so I think I would say to the people who are suffering and whose hearts are broken right now, to give themselves grace, to be patient with that pain, that it is literal physical work to grieve. It makes you tired. It makes you heavy.
And yet you need to do it.
You need to do it.
You can't stuff it down. You've got to allow that grief to come out.
If you don't allow it to come out in ways that are healthy, then it will come out in unhealthy ways, through addictions, through treating others in ways that they don't deserve to be treated, that have nothing to do with your grief, but your grief just squirted out on them. And so I would say to make time and space for that grief, to not be frustrated with yourself that you're not through it yet. Someone whom I don't know gave me a tiny little turtle, and then in the note they said, this is a pocket turtle and you carry it around with you, and the turtle is a symbol to remind you that slow and steady wins the race, and you can't rush through grief. And so I carry this tiny little pretty turtle in my pocket, and I feel it with my fingers, and on days when I'm feeling impatient with myself and wishing that I was further through the process than I am, it gives me the permission to take a step back and sit down and rest and just do the work of the grieving.
About 35 years ago, I did a radio program with a woman who had written a book on this subject, and she had lost her husband. I think he was killed by a drunk driver who ran up on the sidewalk and ran over him. Her book, I can't remember the name of it, it dealt with the issue of the attack, that you think you've got it under control and you're feeling better and you've come through some of the grief process, and you're in a grocery store and you're just putting apples in the cart, and bang, it hits you again. Have you experienced that yet?
Yes. I have kind of a mental image of the wheel of misfortune, and that grief requires that you spin the wheel of misfortune about at least once an hour, and sometimes more often. And instead of money on the wheel of misfortune, it's negative emotions. And you're going to switch emotions about every hour, and they just come and they hit you, and you don't see them coming, and you're not sure why they're there. And it kind of reminds me of getting caught in a wave in the ocean and being tumbled in the surf, and you can't catch your breath, and you didn't see it coming, and you can't stand up. And then you stand up and you have seaweed in your hair and sand in your swimsuit, and the ocean water coming out your nose, and you have to recover from that. It takes time even to recover from the surprise of the attack of grief.
Yeah.
I had the misfortune of attending a funeral even just a couple of weeks ago, and what I saw at that funeral was the reality of the common experience of grief, that even though our situation feels so unique and so sharp to us, that many people are in that place with us, and we are not alone. And to take comfort in that there is that common grieving process. And just to give yourself grace, because it's messy and it's hard, and people will expect you to be through it before you are.
Yeah. And they have a way of going on with life, too, and it has to be that way. But it's difficult to deal with it when other people seem to have forgotten.
Yeah. It's hard to surrender to that, but I think surrender is a huge part of going through grief well, because the more you fight the process, the more painful it is.
One of the reasons for doing this program, and I appreciate your being here to speak so openly, is that I don't want people to forget this. I don't want them to forget you. I want them to pray for your kids. And how can they pray for them?
I would pray for those things that I mentioned about Jesus encountering them in a way that only He can meet their hearts. Only He knows them as their creator, that He will speak to them, that the community will rally around them, that men with that father's heart will come and play football with my son and do art projects with my daughter, and because they're still going to need strong men to teach them what a godly, healthy man looks like. And so I just pray continually for that community around them.
Rachael, thank you for being with us and for your courage and the articulate way you've described what you've been through. And I do ask our listeners to pray for you.
Thank you.
Often and regularly, because this is a long process. And thank you for, in a sense, giving your husband to a dangerous profession in order to do a good work. And you've done that, and now he's completed that. Our hearts go out to you.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell our story.
Wow, what a story that is. You have been listening to an interview that Dr. Dobson conducted with Rachael back in 2018 on his radio show, Family Talk. On this two-part show, you heard the story of Rachael's tragic loss of her husband, Micah. But it wasn't just a story of despair. It was a story of hope, the hope that Jesus gives us during our time of grief.
Amen, Jess. You know, the Bible tells us in Hebrews 13:5 that God will never leave you or forsake you. And here on the Hopecast, Rachael wants to bring you hope in the midst of your trying time. 2 Corinthians 2, verses 3 and 4 says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those with which we ourselves are comforted by God." This is why this show exists, to bring you hope and comfort, the same hope and comfort that God is bringing to Rachael each and every day.
That's a great word, Mike. If you want to find out more about Rachael, you can go to rachelflick.com. Also, be sure to follow Rachael on social media. Just search for Rachael Flick in your internet browser. Thanks for joining us today. This is producer Jess alongside of producer Mike, wishing you a blessed week.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachelflick.com. While there, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate if you would subscribe and leave us a review. Also, another great way to stay informed with the Hopecast is to follow Rachael on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Just click on the social media icons at the top of the page and you'll be directed to Rachael's social media sites. While you're online, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachelflick.com to book her today. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.